You begin not with stars, but with space. The wide, silent space between everything. You let your attention drift away from objects and settle into the gaps, the pauses, the places where nothing obvious is happening. At first, it feels like rest, like stillness, like absence. But the longer you stay here, the more you sense that this emptiness is not truly empty at all. You imagine floating between two distant galaxies, each one a slow whirl of billions of stars, glowing faintly like embers across an unimaginable distance. Between them stretches darkness, cool and quiet. No sound travels here. No air moves. Yet something is present. Something subtle. Space itself seems to breathe. For most of human history, emptiness was thought of as a stage, a passive backdrop where matter performed its dance. Space was simply where things were not. But as you linger here, you learn that space has properties of its own. It can stretch. It can curve. It can carry energy. And it can push. You let this idea settle gently. A push without hands. A pressure without contact. Not a shove, not a force that announces itself loudly, but a persistent encouragement, like a tide that never stops rising. This pressure does not come from stars or galaxies. It does not come from matter at all. It comes from space itself. You breathe slowly, letting the idea move through you. Space is not a void. It is an active participant in the universe's story. As you drift, you notice that the galaxies are not standing still. They are slowly moving apart. Not because they are trying to escape each other, but because the space between them is growing. Like dots drawn on a balloon as it inflates, the dots themselves do not crawl away. The surface beneath them expands, carrying them along. This expansion is gentle, almost polite. Nothing tears. Nothing rushes. The universe simply makes more room. You might expect gravity to pull everything back together. After all, gravity is patient too, and far more familiar. It gathers. It binds. It draws things inward. For a long time, scientists believed gravity would eventually slow the universe's expansion, perhaps even reverse it. The cosmos, they thought, might one day contract, folding back into itself like a long exhale finally released. But space had other plans. You feel that quiet pressure again. The outward insistence. The sense that emptiness itself prefers to spread. This is not something you can see directly. No light shines from it. No particles announce its presence. It reveals itself only through its effect on everything else. You imagine placing a ruler across the universe, marking distances between galaxies, then returning billions of years later to check again. Every measurement has grown. The ruler itself seems unchanged, but the universe beneath it has stretched. Space has multiplied quietly, everywhere, all at once. This is where the story becomes intimate. Because this expansion is not happening somewhere far away, disconnected from you. It happens here too. In the space between atoms. In the gaps between particles. The only reason you do not feel yourself expanding is because other forces hold you together more tightly. Electromagnetism, gravity, the strong nuclear force, these are strong enough to resist the cosmic drift. Still, the universe is trying. You let that thought rest. Even now, as you lie still, space itself is gently urging everything apart. This quiet pressure has no obvious source. It does not radiate from a center. It does not weaken with distance. It appears the same everywhere you look. Uniform. Steady. Patient. It is as if the universe carries within it a subtle preference for more space rather than less. Scientists give careful names to things they cannot fully explain, and later you will hear one of those names. For now, you do not need it. For now, it is enough to feel the effect. You imagine the universe as a vast fabric, woven not from threads but from geometry itself. This fabric is not being pulled from the edges. It is stretching from within. Every point moves away from every other point, not because of motion, but because the fabric between them is relaxing outward. There is something deeply calming about this. No violence. No urgency. Just a slow, steady unfolding. You sense time passing differently here. Expansion does not hurry. It is content to take billions of years to make its point. It does not demand attention. It simply continues. This pressure between galaxies does not disrupt their internal lives. Stars still form. Planets still turn. Light still travels. Life, in its small pockets, still finds ways to bloom. The universe expands without interfering, like a background melody that never overpowers the song. You rest in that thought. The universe is large enough to change without destroying what it contains. As you drift deeper into the quiet, you realize that this outward pressure dominates the universe. Most of what exists is not matter, not stars, not galaxies, but this invisible tendency of space to grow. The things you can see are like islands in an ocean whose depth you cannot measure. And yet, despite its dominance, this pressure remains the least understood part of the cosmos. You might expect something so powerful to feel dramatic. But it does not. It feels like silence. Like distance. Like the calm certainty that tomorrow will arrive without being asked. You notice how comforting that is. The universe does not rush its mysteries. It allows them to unfold slowly, leaving room for curiosity rather than fear. You are not required to understand everything tonight. You are only invited to notice. As you float between galaxies, the pressure continues its quiet work. Space expands. Distances grow. Light stretches as it travels, its colors slowly shifting, carrying messages from a younger universe into the present moment. Those messages are still arriving. They have been traveling for billions of years, crossing an ever-growing distance, whispering stories about how space itself behaves. In listening to them, humans begin to sense that this gentle push may hold deeper secrets. For now, you let the idea rest. Space presses outward. Patient. Unseen. Constant. You feel your own breathing mirror the universe's rhythm. Inhale. Exhale. Expansion without effort. And as you sink further into rest, a soft question drifts into your mind, unhurried and open. If space has been stretching all along, when did it begin to do so, and what changed when the universe first learned how to expand? You drift backward in time, not quickly, not violently, but gently, as if memory itself is guiding you. The universe grows smaller around you. Distances shrink. Galaxies that once floated far apart now feel close enough to touch. Space is warmer here, thicker, more crowded, like a room before it learned how to breathe. You sense that this earlier universe is not chaotic, only compact. Everything exists nearer to everything else. Light does not have far to travel. Matter and energy are woven tightly together, sharing warmth, sharing momentum, sharing a common beginning. This is a universe still learning its shape. You notice that expansion is already happening, but it feels different from what you sensed before. It is not yet dominant. It does not rule the cosmos. It is simply present, like a subtle habit forming before anyone realizes it will last forever. The universe does not explode into expansion. It exhales. You imagine holding your breath for a long time, then releasing it slowly, carefully, without urgency. That is how space begins to grow. Not with intention, not with awareness, but with inevitability. The conditions are right. The laws are in place. Expansion becomes the natural response. You rest inside that image. A universe exhaling. In this early time, gravity still feels confident. Matter pulls matter inward. Dense regions gather more density. Stars have not yet formed, but their future is already whispered into existence. Gravity expects to win. It assumes expansion will slow, tire, and eventually stop. For a while, gravity is right. You feel the push and pull balancing each other. Expansion stretches space outward. Gravity tugs matter inward. Neither dominates. The universe grows, but cautiously, like someone stepping into unfamiliar territory, testing each movement before committing to the next. This balance lasts for billions of years. You sense how different the universe feels when expansion is modest. Space grows, but not enough to overwhelm attraction. Galaxies will form. Clusters will emerge. Long cosmic structures will thread themselves across the universe like veins of light. The universe is productive in this era. It builds. You imagine time passing in vast, silent waves. Millions of years flow by like seconds. Stars ignite. Live brightly. Fade. New ones take their place. Planets assemble from leftover dust. In small corners, chemistry becomes complex enough to wonder about itself. All the while, space continues to stretch. But you notice something important. Expansion does not slow in the way gravity expects. It does not fade into stillness. It persists. Quietly. Reliably. As if space remembers something gravity has forgotten. You let that thought sit gently. Memory does not belong only to minds. Sometimes it belongs to laws. As the universe ages, matter becomes more spread out. Dense regions still exist, but overall, the cosmos grows emptier. Gravity's grip weakens with distance. Its influence thins as space grows larger between objects. Expansion, however, does not weaken. You feel the shift approaching long before it becomes obvious. Like night approaching before the sky darkens, the balance begins to tilt. Expansion becomes easier as the universe empties. There is less matter to resist it. Less gravity to slow it down. Space begins to realize it can stretch more freely. You imagine the universe pausing, just for a moment, at this realization. Not consciously, not emotionally, but mathematically. The equations describing reality subtly change their outcome. Expansion stops asking permission. This is not a sudden rebellion. It is a gradual confidence. The universe has learned how to stretch, and now it practices. You feel expansion becoming smoother, more uniform. No longer just a leftover motion from the beginning, but a behavior sustained by space itself. The gaps between galaxies grow faster than before. Light traveling through space stretches with it, lengthening into redder tones, carrying the record of this change across time. You sense that something new has taken the lead. Not matter, not radiation, but the structure of space itself. This transition is quiet. There is no announcement. No cosmic marker saying, "Now everything is different." It simply happens, unnoticed for billions of years, until minds arise capable of looking back and measuring the past. You imagine those minds, long in the future, pointing telescopes into the darkness, reconstructing this slow story from faint signals. They will see that the universe once expanded more gently, then learned how to accelerate. But here, now, in this moment of becoming, the universe does not know it is changing. It only follows what feels natural. Expansion becomes the easier path. Stretching becomes the default. You let yourself feel how calm this process is. No urgency. No direction chosen over another. Just a quiet preference expressed everywhere at once. Space grows. Distances increase. The universe relaxes into its own geometry. You realize that this learning process is still ongoing. Expansion has not finished becoming what it will be. The universe is still experimenting, still adjusting, still responding to its own conditions. That realization brings a strange comfort. Even something as vast as the cosmos does not rush towards certainty. You return your attention to the feeling of that first exhale. The moment when space realized it could continue opening, not just as a consequence, but as a characteristic. That moment never truly ended. It extends into the present, into every measurement, into every stretch of darkness between stars. As you rest with that idea, you begin to sense the next layer of the story forming. Because one day, far in the future of this early universe, observers will notice something unexpected. Expansion will not only continue, it will speed up. And that surprise will change everything we think we know. You arrive much later in the story, at a time when minds have learned how to listen to the universe. Not with ears, but with instruments tuned to light so faint it has crossed billions of years just to reach them. You sit quietly with these observers, feeling their patience, their careful attention, their trust that the universe leaves honest traces of its past. They are not looking for mystery. Not yet. They are looking for confirmation. The expectation is simple and comforting. Expansion began long ago, they know that much. Gravity should be slowing it down. Matter pulls inward. Over time, that pull should gently resist the outward motion of space, like a stretched spring slowly relaxing back toward rest. This makes sense. It feels intuitive. It feels complete. You feel the calm confidence in their measurements as they watch distant galaxies, tiny smudges of light whose colors carry meaning. Light stretches as space stretches. Blue shifts toward red, lengthening its wavelength like a note held longer and longer. By measuring that stretch, astronomers read the universe's expansion like a memory written into light itself. They expect the numbers to confirm a gradual slowing. A universe growing tired. At first, nothing feels wrong. But then you notice the pause. The subtle hesitation when results begin to settle into place. You feel the quiet unease that arrives before words. The data does not behave. It leans the wrong way. Distances and brightness refuse to match expectations. You sit with that discomfort. The galaxies are farther than they should be. Or perhaps moving faster than they should be. The math resists adjustment. The more carefully they measure, the more stubborn the result becomes. Expansion is not slowing. It is speeding up. You feel the room grow still around this realization. Not with fear, but with surprise. The gentle kind that forces you to reread a sentence because it changes the meaning of everything that came before it. Galaxies are not easing back toward one another. They are rushing away faster now than they were in the past. The universe is not winding down. It is pressing outward with increasing confidence. You let that sink in slowly. This is not a small correction. This is not a minor detail. This is a reversal of expectation. Gravity is not winning on the largest scales. Something else is at work. You imagine the universe smiling quietly, not mischievously, but patiently, as if it has been waiting for someone to notice. The observers double-check everything. They question their instruments. They question their assumptions. They question themselves. This is how science protects itself, by doubting first, believing later. But the result remains. The universe is accelerating. You feel how strange that word is in this context. Accelerating does not mean racing. It does not mean sudden motion. It means that the rate of expansion is increasing, slowly, steadily, everywhere at once. A gentle insistence becoming stronger over time. You imagine standing on a moving walkway that begins imperceptibly, then gradually carries you faster without ever jolting your balance. That is what acceleration feels like here. Smooth. Continuous. Unannounced. The discovery does not come from one observation alone. It emerges from many, layered together like whispers forming a sentence. Distant stellar explosions, used as markers of cosmic distance, glow with predictable brightness. When they appear dimmer than expected, it means they are farther away. Farther than a slowing universe would allow. You feel the weight of that realization. Something is pushing. Not from the outside. Not from a center. From everywhere. This push does not clump. It does not gather. It does not thin with distance. It behaves unlike anything familiar. It seems woven into space itself, encouraging expansion not just to continue, but to intensify. You sit with the observers as they name their confusion. They do not yet know what this force is. They only know what it does. It acts against gravity. It fills space evenly. And it becomes more influential as the universe grows emptier. You sense how unsettling and exciting this is. The universe has revealed a new behavior, one that was invisible until now. For billions of years, this push existed quietly, overshadowed by matter and radiation. Only when the universe thinned did it step forward. Like a voice that becomes audible only when the room grows quiet. You imagine the cosmos as a vast balance scale. Early on, matter weighed heavily, tipping the scale inward. Over time, as expansion diluted matter's influence, the other side grew dominant. The scale tipped outward. This push was always there. It was simply waiting. You feel a gentle awe at this patience. The universe does not rush its revelations. It reveals itself only when conditions allow understanding. The observers begin to speak carefully. They do not claim certainty. They describe effects. They map consequences. They acknowledge that something fundamental is missing from the picture. You notice how the discovery does not end curiosity. It deepens it. What is this push? Why does it behave this way? Has it always been the same, or is it changing too? These questions do not feel urgent. They feel spacious. Like open doors rather than alarms. You rest inside that openness. The universe is larger than previously imagined, not just in size, but in behavior. Space is not a neutral container. It has a role. It has influence. You think back to the quiet pressure between galaxies, the gentle insistence you felt earlier. Now it has a signature. A measurable effect. A presence revealed not through sight, but through motion. The observers give this phenomenon a temporary name, knowing that naming is not knowing. A label to hold the mystery without pretending to solve it. A way to speak about the push without claiming understanding. You feel how careful that is. The universe accelerates. Galaxies drift apart faster as time goes on. Light stretches more. Distances grow more rapidly. And still, nothing feels violent. The cosmos remains calm, almost serene. You sense how this discovery reshapes the story of everything. The future is no longer a simple slowing into stillness. It becomes something else, something shaped by this persistent outward tendency. And yet, for now, you stay with the moment of realization. The instant when expectation meets evidence and yields. The universe has surprised those who listen to it carefully. You feel how comforting that surprise is. It means there is more to learn. More depth. More layers waiting beneath familiar ideas. As you settle into rest, the push continues, unnoticed by most, shaping the largest possible scales. The observers will spend generations trying to understand it, tracing its fingerprints across time. And as their questions deepen, another realization begins to form quietly in the background. To understand this push, they will first need to give it a name. You arrive at a moment of quiet language, where discovery pauses and vocabulary begins. The universe has revealed a behavior, a steady outward insistence that grows stronger with time, and now the human mind does what it has always done in the face of the unknown. It looks for a name. Not to conquer the mystery. Not to trap it. But to speak about it without fear. You sit with scientists as they consider this invisible influence. They know what it does, but not what it is. They resist the urge to pretend understanding. Instead, they choose a phrase that admits ignorance while still allowing conversation to continue. They call it dark energy. You feel the weight of that word, dark, and sense immediately how misleading it can be. Darkness suggests absence, shadow, something hidden from view. But this thing is not hidden in corners. It fills all of space evenly. It is not lurking behind galaxies. It lives between them, within them, everywhere at once. And energy, too, carries expectations. You imagine sparks, motion, heat, power that can be harnessed. But this is not that kind of energy. It does not fuel stars or light fires. It does not move objects through space. It changes space itself. So the name is not a definition. It is a placeholder. A careful admission that something fundamental exists beyond current understanding. You find comfort in that honesty. You realize that naming has always worked this way in science. Names arrive before explanations. They give shape to questions long before answers are available. The name becomes a vessel, something sturdy enough to carry curiosity across generations. Dark energy is such a vessel. You imagine it not as a substance, but as a property. Like stiffness in a spring, or tension in fabric. You cannot see stiffness. You infer it by how things respond. Space, it seems, has a kind of tension built into it, a preference that reveals itself only on the largest scales. You let that idea settle slowly. Space is not passive. It has character. When scientists speak of dark energy, they are not claiming discovery in the usual sense. They are acknowledging a gap. A missing piece in the story of how the universe behaves. The name does not explain the push. It points to where explanation is needed. You sense how carefully they hold that distinction. There are theories, of course. There always are. Some imagine dark energy as a constant property of space itself, unchanging, eternal. Others wonder if it is something more dynamic, something that evolves with time. Some ask whether it is energy at all, or whether it signals that gravity itself behaves differently across cosmic distances. Each idea floats gently, unconfirmed, like leaves on still water. You notice how none of these possibilities feel urgent. The universe is not asking to be solved immediately. It continues expanding whether or not it is understood. The mystery does not threaten stability. It simply invites thought. You feel your breathing slow as you sit with that invitation. Dark energy does not announce itself through forceful interaction. It does not push on planets or pull on stars directly. It works quietly, shaping the overall geometry of the universe. It changes how distances evolve, how futures unfold. It is subtle enough that it went unnoticed for most of cosmic history. You think about how strange that is. The dominant component of the universe, the thing that determines its long-term fate, remained invisible until careful minds learned how to measure light across billions of years. It did not hide out of malice. It hid because nothing was quiet enough to reveal it. Only when matter thinned, when gravity's voice softened, did the whisper of dark energy become audible. You find that deeply poetic. The name also serves another purpose. It creates a shared space for dialogue. With a name, scientists across the world can compare notes, challenge ideas, refine measurements. Without a name, the mystery remains isolated, fragmented. Naming allows collective listening. You imagine dark energy not as an answer, but as a question stretched across the universe. A question written into space itself. Every expanding gap between galaxies repeats it. Every stretched photon carries it forward. What is this tendency? Why does space behave this way? You feel no pressure to respond. The name remains intentionally vague because precision would be dishonest. To call it something more specific would imply understanding that does not yet exist. Dark energy says only this: something unseen influences expansion. And sometimes, that is enough. You notice how the word dark also protects imagination. It prevents false clarity. It leaves room for revision. Science does not fear being wrong. It fears being prematurely certain. You let that lesson sink in. Not knowing is not failure. It is a stage. As the name settles into scientific language, it begins to shape how questions are asked. Researchers design experiments to measure its effects more carefully. They look for patterns across time, subtle changes that might hint at its nature. The name becomes a compass, pointing toward deeper investigation without dictating direction. You imagine future generations inheriting this term. They may one day replace it with something clearer, something earned through understanding. Or they may refine it, discovering layers within the mystery itself. For now, the name holds steady. You feel how gently the universe responds to this naming. It does not reveal more or less because of human words. It continues expanding, calm and indifferent to labels. The name exists for human minds, not for cosmic approval. And that feels right. You sit with the idea that dark energy fills even the space you occupy now. Not pressing on you, not pulling at you, simply existing. A background property of reality, as natural as distance, as quiet as time passing. You sense that this name is not the end of the story. It is a pause. A breath taken between observation and understanding. A way to acknowledge mystery without rushing past it. As you rest, another thought begins to form gently. Naming something allows it to be studied over time. And time, in the universe, has a way of revealing whether things remain the same or quietly change. If dark energy has a name now, the next question will be whether it has always been what it is today. You settle into the idea of constancy. It is a soothing idea, one the human mind leans on often. The thought that some things, once set, remain unchanged forever. The rising of the sun. The pull of gravity. The steady ticking of physical laws that hold the universe together like a quiet promise. For a while, dark energy fits neatly into this comfort. You imagine it as a constant background hum, the same everywhere, always. A property of space itself, unchanging across time and distance. This idea has a name too, one that sounds solid and dependable, like a number etched into the foundation of reality. If dark energy is constant, then the universe's future becomes easier to sketch. Expansion will continue. It will accelerate gently, endlessly, stretching space thinner and thinner without surprise. There is a strange peace in that predictability. You feel how appealing this idea is. A universe governed by steady rules feels safe, even when those rules lead toward vast emptiness. Constancy means reliability. It means the cosmos will not suddenly change its mind. But as you rest inside this calm assumption, a whisper enters. It comes not from imagination, but from measurement. You notice that when scientists look carefully across cosmic time, they are not only measuring how fast the universe expands today. They are trying to reconstruct how that expansion behaved long ago. They compare the present to the distant past, reading light that left its source when the universe was much younger. And sometimes, those readings do not line up as neatly as expected. You feel the whisper grow clearer. What if the push of dark energy is not perfectly constant? What if it changes, slowly, subtly, in ways that only become noticeable across billions of years? This is not a dramatic question. It does not threaten the universe with sudden collapse or explosion. It simply introduces uncertainty where comfort once lived. You breathe with that uncertainty. The idea feels almost personal. You know from experience that constancy is rare. Even the most stable patterns evolve when observed long enough. Rivers change course. Mountains erode. Living systems adapt. Why should the universe be exempt from this quiet tendency toward change? You imagine dark energy not as a fixed number, but as a behavior. Something that responds to the universe's state. As space expands, perhaps this push adjusts. Not intentionally, not purposefully, but as a natural consequence of deeper rules still unknown. You let yourself sit with that image. A universe that learns, not consciously, but structurally. Scientists give this possibility careful language. They do not claim dark energy is changing. They ask whether it could. They look for hints, patterns, deviations so small they could easily be noise. The difference between constancy and evolution may be subtle beyond imagination. You feel the patience required for such a search. To test whether dark energy changes, researchers must compare epochs separated by billions of years. They must trust light that has traveled almost the entire age of the universe. They must build models and then resist believing them too strongly. This is slow science. Quiet science. You imagine the universe offering its answers reluctantly, in fragments, never all at once. Each observation adds a brushstroke to a painting too large to see from up close. The idea of changing dark energy opens many gentle doors. If the push was weaker in the past, that might explain why structure formed so effectively. If it is stronger now, that might explain why acceleration dominates the present. If it evolves, the future becomes less predictable, more nuanced. You notice how none of this feels frightening. The changes, if they exist, happen on timescales far beyond human concern. Stars will continue to shine. Galaxies will remain intact. The night sky will not suddenly rearrange itself. Cosmic change is slow enough to be kind. You feel reassured by that. There are many ways dark energy might change, if it does at all. It could slowly increase, making expansion more dominant over time. It could weaken, allowing gravity to regain influence on the largest scales. Or it could vary gently, responding to the universe's density like a tide responding to the moon. Each possibility carries a different future, but all unfold calmly. You sense how deeply this question matters. Dark energy is not just another component of the universe. It determines the universe's fate. Whether expansion continues forever, tears structures apart, or gradually eases into something quieter depends on its behavior. And yet, the universe does not rush to clarify. You reflect on how fitting that is. The biggest questions are answered the slowest. The idea of a constant that may not be constant also reshapes how you think about laws themselves. Perhaps some laws are not fixed rules carved into existence, but stable patterns that emerge under certain conditions. As conditions change, the patterns adjust. You enter a quieter kind of activity now, one that does not disturb what it studies. The universe is not poked or prodded. It is simply watched as it rests. Measuring the cosmos is an act of listening, and listening requires stillness. You imagine the universe asleep, not unconscious, but settled into its long rhythms. Galaxies drift. Space stretches. Light travels. Nothing rushes. Nothing waits for you. The universe continues exactly as it always has, indifferent to observation. And yet, it leaves traces. You sit beside scientists who have learned to read those traces, not as messages meant for them, but as consequences of physical laws unfolding over time. They do not ask the universe to explain itself. They gather the quiet evidence it leaves behind. The primary messenger is light. Light carries memory. Every photon begins its journey with information about where and when it was born. As it travels through expanding space, that information changes gently. Wavelengths stretch. Colors shift. Brightness fades. These changes are not distortions. They are records. You imagine light as a long letter written slowly, altered slightly by every mile it travels. By the time it arrives, it contains the entire story of its journey, if you know how to read it. Measuring the universe means learning this language. You feel the patience required. Some of the light arriving now began its journey before Earth existed, before the Sun formed, before the Milky Way settled into its familiar shape. To measure dark energy, scientists must trust these ancient signals, knowing they cannot be repeated or replaced. There are no experiments here in the usual sense. The universe does not reset. There are no controls. There is only careful comparison across time. You notice how gentle the tools are. Telescopes do not touch what they observe. They collect photons quietly, one by one, building images slowly. Space-based instruments drift above Earth's atmosphere, avoiding distortion. Ground-based observatories wait for clear nights, adjusting mirrors with exquisite precision. All of this effort is devoted to noticing very small differences. Because dark energy does not announce itself loudly. It does not bend light dramatically or create sudden events. Its influence accumulates. It reveals itself only when distances are compared across billions of years. You feel how strange this is. The most dominant influence on the universe's future can only be detected through subtle statistical patterns. It requires enormous scale and enormous patience. One method involves using objects that shine with predictable brightness. When these objects appear dimmer than expected, it means they are farther away. Farther means space has expanded more than anticipated. More expansion hints at stronger influence from dark energy. You imagine lining up these distant beacons across time, comparing near and far, present and past. Each one adds a data point. None is decisive alone. Together, they whisper a trend. Another method looks at the universe's earliest light, the faint glow left over from when space first cooled enough to let photons travel freely. This ancient background carries imprints of the universe's initial conditions, frozen into patterns of temperature and density. By comparing those early patterns with the universe's current structure, scientists can infer how expansion unfolded in between. They do not watch the expansion directly. They reconstruct it from before and after. You sense how careful this reconstruction must be. Assumptions are tested. Models are refined. Uncertainties are acknowledged openly. Measuring the universe is less about certainty and more about restraint. You notice how often scientists speak in probabilities rather than absolutes. This is not weakness. It is honesty. The universe speaks softly. Precision requires humility. You imagine long nights spent calibrating instruments, accounting for dust, correcting for motion, subtracting noise. All of this work is invisible to the final result, yet essential. The smallest error can mimic a cosmic signal. The smallest bias can tilt conclusions. You feel respect for this patience. The universe does not cooperate. It does not simplify itself for understanding. It offers complexity and asks observers to be worthy of it. As measurements improve, patterns begin to emerge more clearly. Expansion appears to accelerate. Dark energy seems consistent with a steady influence, though uncertainty remains. The margins shrink. Confidence grows slowly, like dawn. You realize that measuring the universe while it sleeps means accepting delay. Answers come decades apart. Instruments are built, used, retired, replaced. Generations contribute pieces to a puzzle none will finish alone. This, too, feels comforting. Knowledge does not belong to individuals. It flows through time, just like light. You notice how this process mirrors the universe itself. Expansion accumulates gradually. Influence reveals itself slowly. Nothing happens all at once. There is also beauty in the indirectness. Dark energy is never seen directly, yet its presence becomes undeniable through consistency. Every method points in the same direction. Different techniques, different assumptions, same gentle conclusion. Space is expanding faster now than it did before. You let that idea rest without urgency. Measurement does not force interpretation. It simply narrows possibility. You think about how different this is from everyday experience, where immediate feedback shapes understanding. Here, feedback spans billions of years. Cause and effect are separated by cosmic time. And yet, the universe remains readable. You imagine standing at the edge of a quiet ocean at night, measuring the tide not by watching waves, but by marking where the water reaches each evening. Over time, the pattern emerges. The tide responds to forces far away, unseen but reliable. Dark energy feels like that tide. As scientists refine their measurements, they begin to notice something else. Different methods do not always agree perfectly. The discrepancies are small, subtle, easily dismissed. But they persist. You feel the first hint of the next chapter forming. These disagreements are not failures. They are opportunities. They may point to unrecognized errors. Or they may hint that the universe is more complex than current models allow. You sit with that possibility gently. Measuring the universe is not about forcing coherence. It is about letting patterns speak for themselves. Sometimes they speak in harmony. Sometimes they whisper in slightly different tones. As you relax, you sense the universe continuing its quiet expansion, unbothered by scrutiny. Light keeps arriving. Space keeps stretching. And careful minds keep listening, trusting that even the softest signals matter. You feel your own thoughts slow, matching the pace of cosmic measurement. There is no rush to understand everything tonight. The universe will still be there tomorrow, and the next day, and long after. And as the measurements accumulate, as numbers are compared and rechecked, a gentle tension begins to form, almost imperceptible, in the data itself. You begin to notice it not as a problem, but as a feeling. A faint unease beneath otherwise calm results. The universe has been measured carefully, patiently, across many methods and many years, and yet the numbers do not fall perfectly into place. They come close. Very close. But not close enough to ignore the gaps. You sit with that space between values. At first, it feels harmless. After all, measurement is never exact. Every observation carries uncertainty, like a soft blur around the truth. Scientists expect this. They plan for it. They build it into their language. But this tension does not fade as measurements improve. You sense it as a low hum beneath the data, a vibration that persists no matter how carefully instruments are refined. Different ways of measuring the universe's expansion arrive at slightly different answers. Not wildly different. Just enough to resist quiet resolution. You imagine two clocks ticking almost in unison, but never perfectly aligned. Each insists it is correct. Neither is obviously wrong. This disagreement becomes known quietly, without drama. There is no sudden announcement. Just careful papers, cautious phrasing, raised eyebrows and thoughtful silence. The universe is not contradicting itself loudly. It is whispering inconsistency. You feel how uncomfortable this is for those who listen closely. Science prefers harmony. It prefers when independent methods confirm each other, reinforcing confidence. Agreement feels like safety. Disagreement feels like standing on uncertain ground. But uncertainty is not the enemy here. It is the doorway. You imagine the numbers laid out gently, side by side. Measurements based on the early universe suggest one rate of expansion. Measurements based on the later universe suggest another. Each method is trusted. Each is carefully checked. And yet, they do not match. This is not chaos. It is structure with a flaw. You notice how tempting it is to dismiss the tension as error. Perhaps an instrument is miscalibrated. Perhaps an assumption is slightly off. Perhaps dust obscures light, or models simplify too much. These explanations are reasonable. Likely, even. And yet, the tension remains. You feel the patience required to sit with this possibility without rushing to conclusion. To admit that the universe may be hinting at something deeper, while also acknowledging that the hint could dissolve with better understanding. This balance is delicate. You sense how science leans into discomfort rather than away from it. not emotionally, but methodically. Disagreement is examined, not erased. Each assumption is questioned. Each method is stress-tested. The universe is not accused of inconsistency. Understanding is. You imagine the data as a map drawn from multiple perspectives. Each view captures the landscape differently. When the maps do not align, it does not mean the landscape is wrong. It means the maps are incomplete. You let that metaphor carry you. The tension in the numbers may be telling us something profound. It may be suggesting that dark energy behaves differently than expected, or that gravity itself changes across cosmic scales, or that the universe's history is more nuanced than simple models allow. Or it may be nothing more than the growing pains of precision. You feel how calm this uncertainty is. No alarms. No collapse of knowledge. Just a gentle reminder that understanding evolves. The tension becomes a quiet companion to measurement, present but not overwhelming. It does not disrupt sleep. It invites curiosity. You imagine scientists returning to their instruments with renewed care. Not to prove the universe wrong, but to listen better. They refine techniques. They gather more data. They build new observatories designed specifically to explore these subtle differences. This is how progress feels from the inside. Slow. Careful. Almost anticlimactic. You notice how the universe does not reward impatience. It does not reveal itself more quickly when pressured. It yields only to sustained attention. You feel your own thoughts slow to match that rhythm. The tension in the numbers also carries a deeper lesson. It reminds us that certainty is not the goal. Coherence is. And coherence sometimes emerges only after tension is allowed to exist. You reflect on how often insight begins this way, with a small inconsistency that refuses to disappear. A detail that does not fit. A quiet discomfort that lingers. History shows this pattern again and again. Gentle disagreements lead to deeper frameworks. New understanding often begins as an inconvenience. You sense the possibility hovering here. Dark energy may still be constant. Gravity may still behave as expected. Or the universe may be offering a clue that something fundamental remains unseen. The tension does not yet choose between these options. And that is its power. You imagine future observers looking back at this moment, wondering whether this was the first hint of a deeper truth, or whether it was simply the universe testing patience. Either way, the tension matters. You rest with the idea that knowledge is not built from certainty alone, but from the courage to remain open, to allow numbers to disagree without forcing them into agreement. You feel a quiet respect for this process. As measurements continue, the tension becomes more refined, more precise. It does not grow louder. It grows sharper. Easier to describe. Harder to dismiss. And slowly, gently, it begins to suggest new questions rather than answers. If the numbers disagree, what does that say about the force shaping expansion? Could dark energy be changing in ways too subtle to detect directly? Could it behave differently across time, influencing early and late measurements in distinct ways? These questions drift through you like soft echoes. You notice how none of them demand immediate resolution. they simply widen the horizon of thought. The universe does not rush clarity. It allows confusion to mature into insight. You let yourself relax into that understanding. The tension is not a flaw. It is a feature, a sign that attention has reached a level where deeper layers become visible. And as you sink further into rest, you sense the story moving gently forward, toward possibilities that explore not what dark energy is, but what it might become. You allow yourself to drift forward now, not into prediction, but into possibility. The universe does not offer a single future. It offers tendencies, shaped by how its quiet forces behave over time. Among them, dark energy stands gently at the center, not as a dramatic actor, but as a guiding mood. You imagine what it would mean if this cosmic push were not fixed, not locked into one behavior forever. Not changing suddenly, not announcing itself, but drifting slightly, like a current beneath calm water. First, you consider a universe where the push grows stronger. In this future, expansion continues to accelerate, not abruptly, but persistently. Space stretches more eagerly with each passing era. Galaxies slip farther apart. Clusters loosen their grip. Over immense spans of time, even the largest structures begin to feel isolated. Nothing tears. Nothing breaks. The change is too slow for violence. Stars still form inside galaxies. Planets still orbit. Local neighborhoods remain intact for longer than imagination can easily hold. But beyond them, the universe grows lonelier. Light from distant galaxies fades, stretched so thin that it can no longer reach across the widening gaps. You feel how quiet this future is. The sky does not explode. It empties. Over trillions of years, each region of space becomes its own island of matter, surrounded by darkness that is not absence, but distance. The universe does not end. It thins. It stretches until communication across vast scales becomes impossible. This is not destruction. It is separation. You rest with that image and notice how gentle it feels. The universe does not punish existence. It simply allows space to grow large enough that connections fade naturally. Then, you let that vision soften and shift. You imagine instead that the push grows weaker. In this future, expansion continues for a long time, but its urgency fades. The universe still grows, but more slowly. Gravity, patient and persistent, begins to matter again on the largest scales. Not immediately. Not dramatically. Over immense spans of time, expansion eases. Galaxies drift apart less quickly. The cosmic fabric relaxes into a gentler stretch. Structure remains relevant longer. The universe holds itself together with quiet balance. You feel the comfort in that possibility. Nothing reverses suddenly. There is no collapse. Just a gradual slowing, like a breath that does not quite finish exhaling. The universe remains open, spacious, but not endlessly accelerating. And then there is another possibility, more subtle still. You imagine dark energy fading. Not disappearing, not switching off, but becoming less influential as the universe evolves. In this future, expansion slows enough that gravity slowly regains dominance across the largest scales. Over unimaginable time, the outward motion could halt. What happens then is not obvious. The universe might coast. It might stabilize. It might even begin to draw itself inward again. But even this possibility carries no drama. If contraction were to occur, it would begin gently. Expansion would slow to stillness. Stillness would linger. Only then would inward motion begin, so gradual that galaxies would not notice for eons. You sense how kind cosmic timescales are. They protect existence from shock. You realize that these futures are not predictions. They are sensitivities. They show how deeply the universe's fate depends on the behavior of a force that works quietly, almost invisibly. Dark energy, in this way, becomes less like a thing and more like a temperament. A tendency toward openness or restraint. A preference expressed slowly, consistently, without urgency. You find yourself appreciating that. The universe does not decide its future in moments. It expresses it across ages. You imagine these futures not as destinations, but as directions. The universe leans rather than leaps. It drifts rather than declares. Dark energy nudges the cosmos rather than commands it. This perspective softens fear. You notice how none of these scenarios threaten the present. No matter how dark energy behaves, stars will continue shining for billions of years. Galaxies will remain rich with structure. Life, where it arises, will have time to unfold. Cosmic futures are generous in scale. You breathe more easily with that understanding. You also notice how these possibilities feed back into present questions. If dark energy is changing, even slightly, its future influence may differ from its past. The universe's early history may not fully predict its distant fate. This means observation matters. Not because catastrophe looms, but because understanding deepens. You imagine scientists tracing these futures backward, asking what present measurements can rule out or support. Each tiny variation in data becomes a clue about which direction the universe leans. You feel how patient this work is. No single measurement settles the question. Patterns accumulate. Confidence grows slowly. Dark energy, if dynamic, would not reveal itself through sudden shifts, but through gentle trends. Slight differences across time. Small inconsistencies that, taken together, suggest movement. You sense how fitting this is. A force that works slowly would reveal itself slowly. You reflect on how human intuition struggles with this scale. We expect change to be visible, immediate. The universe asks for a different kind of attention. One that spans generations. One that values continuity over climax. You find that calming. In all these imagined futures, the universe remains calm. There are no explosions scripted into the equations. No endings marked by drama. Just geometry evolving. Space stretching or relaxing according to rules deeper than current understanding. You realize that this is perhaps the most important insight. The universe is not fragile. It is not balanced on a knife's edge. It is robust, capable of expressing different futures without collapsing into chaos. Dark energy, whether constant or changing, participates in that robustness. You feel small again, but safely so. Your existence occupies a brief, gentle window in a vast unfolding. The universe does not rush you. It does not demand that you witness its final state. You are allowed to rest inside the present. As you linger with these futures, you sense that imagining them is not about prediction, but perspective. It helps you see how interconnected everything is. How a subtle property of space can shape the destiny of all structure without ever touching a single atom directly. You let that interconnectedness settle. The push that moves galaxies also shapes time, distance, and possibility. It defines what it means for things to be far apart, and what it means for light to travel at all. Dark energy becomes not just a force, but a context. And as your thoughts slow further, another question begins to rise gently. If the cosmic push were to change, even slightly, how would that change ripple through everything else the universe contains? You follow the question forward, not toward answers, but toward effects. If the universe's push were to change, even slightly, it would not do so in isolation. Nothing in the cosmos acts alone. Every tendency sends ripples outward, touching structures, motions, and histories in ways that take time to reveal themselves. You begin with space itself. Space is not merely a stage where events unfold. It participates. Its expansion defines distance, shapes motion, and decides how quickly things can separate or remain connected. A change in the cosmic push would subtly rewrite the meaning of far away. If expansion accelerates more strongly, distances grow not just larger, but faster. Light must work harder to cross space. Horizons shift. Regions that could once exchange information slowly lose that ability. The universe becomes quieter, not because things vanish, but because messages can no longer arrive. If expansion weakens, space grows more hospitable to connection. Light travels farther before fading. Structures remain visible longer. The universe preserves its memory more generously. You realize that the universe remembers through light. Every galaxy you see is a message delayed by distance. A change in expansion changes how memory is stored, stretched, or erased. Dark energy, by guiding expansion, quietly edits the archive of the cosmos. Then you turn your attention to time. Time flows locally at its own steady pace, but the universe's expansion shapes how events line up across vast distances. When space stretches faster, clocks in distant regions drift beyond coordination. Not because time itself changes, but because comparison becomes harder. A universe accelerating more strongly grows temporally fragmented. Each island of matter keeps its own history, increasingly cut off from others. Shared cosmic stories fade. If acceleration slows, the universe retains a sense of shared chronology longer. More of its history remains mutually accessible. Time, in this sense, becomes more communal. You notice how poetic that feels. Next, you consider matter. Matter responds to expansion indirectly. Galaxies resist separation through gravity. Clusters fight the stretching of space with collective mass. The balance between gravity and expansion determines which structures survive and which dissolve. A stronger cosmic push slowly weakens gravity's influence on the largest scales. Superclusters thin. Long filaments loosen. The cosmic web relaxes, strand by strand. A weaker push allows gravity to keep weaving. Structure persists. Patterns remain legible longer. The universe holds onto its architecture. You sense how delicately tuned this balance already is. Not fragile, but precise. The fact that galaxies exist at all is evidence of a universe where expansion did not overwhelm gravity too quickly. You then drift toward the early universe. If dark energy changes over time, its past behavior matters as much as its future. The growth of structure depends on how expansion unfolded billions of years ago. Slight differences early on could amplify into noticeable patterns later. You imagine the first galaxies forming under slightly altered conditions. Matter clumping just a bit faster or a bit slower. Star formation rising earlier or lingering longer. These are not dramatic divergences, but statistical ones. The universe does not branch sharply. It leans. You appreciate that even massive differences in destiny arise from small variations in tendency. The cosmos is shaped less by events than by preferences sustained across time. You then think about observers. Life, wherever it arises, is sensitive to environment. Not fragile, but responsive. A universe that expands too quickly might limit the time structures remain connected. One that expands too slowly might crowd matter more tightly. But the universe seems generous. Across many possible behaviors of dark energy, long-lived stars still form. Stable galaxies still exist. There is room for complexity to unfold. You find comfort in that resilience. The universe does not require perfect conditions. It allows for variation without collapse. Dark energy can shift slightly without erasing the possibility of richness. You pause and notice how human fear often imagines cosmic change as catastrophic. Endings, tears, sudden finales. But the universe prefers gradients. Transitions stretched across eons. Even dramatic-sounding outcomes are quiet when measured against time. You return again to observation. If dark energy changes, its fingerprints would appear not as sudden anomalies, but as mismatches between expectation and measurement. Distances that grow just a little differently than predicted. Structures that evolve slightly out of step with models. You imagine astronomers comparing maps of galaxies across epochs. Listening for whispers in the data. Looking for coherence rather than surprises. You feel the humility of that process. The universe does not shout its secrets. It invites patience. You also notice how deeply this ties the future to the present. Every measurement taken now is a message sent forward. It constrains what the universe can become, narrowing the range of its possible futures. Understanding, in this way, becomes an act of care. You realize that dark energy, though remote from daily life, shapes the ultimate context of everything. It decides whether the universe becomes increasingly isolated or remains softly connected. Whether its memory thins or lingers. And yet, none of this urgency touches you directly. The stars above you tonight will not change because of these questions. The sky remains familiar. The universe allows curiosity without demanding anxiety. You rest in that balance. As your thoughts slow, you see that asking how change ripples through the cosmos is also a way of understanding stability. It shows how much must remain steady for anything to exist at all. Dark energy's power lies not in what it does suddenly, but in what it sustains. And as this realization settles, another curiosity begins to form, quieter still. How do we know that this push exists at all, if it never reveals itself directly? You return to here and now, letting the vastness of time settle behind you like a slow, receding tide. You have traveled through billions of years, traced the quiet push of space, and wandered alongside measurements, numbers, and subtle discrepancies. And yet, the ultimate truth of dark energy remains elusive. It has not explained itself, and perhaps it never will, at least in the way you might hope. You feel no frustration, only calm curiosity. There is a strange comfort in mystery. The universe does not need to be fully known to be present, to be beautiful, to be meaningful. The unanswered question itself carries grace. It stretches across the cosmos like a gentle sigh. You imagine the countless photons that have traveled billions of light years to reach telescopes, each carrying a tiny piece of evidence. Each is a whisper from the past, an invitation to observe, reflect, and wonder. Their messages are not complete. They never promise closure. Yet they offer connection across time and space. You rest in that continuity. You think of the numbers that once seemed so firm, now revealing their tensions and inconsistencies. They are not failures. They are guides, delicate nudges toward deeper understanding. The hum of disagreement in the data is not chaos. It is a sign that the universe is alive in its complexity, that there is still more to explore. And you, quietly, are part of that dialogue through observation and thought. You feel the weight of centuries of inquiry, of careful minds who have measured, analyzed, and calculated the subtle rhythms of expansion. Their patient work stretches forward into your consciousness, reminding you that understanding is a journey, not a destination. Dark energy's mystery is a companion, not an obstacle. Its presence encourages humility and attentiveness, teaching you to respect time, patience, and subtlety. You reflect on the possible futures you imagined, one where expansion accelerates, scattering galaxies into isolation, one where expansion slows, granting gravity more influence, one where the push evolves gently, shaping the cosmos in ways unseen but felt. Each scenario was calm, each outcome stretched across eons, far beyond human urgency. They are possibilities, not predictions. They remind you that change, even at cosmic scales, is often patient and quiet. You breathe slowly, letting the rhythm of thought match the expansion of space itself. Each breath is a reminder that time, though vast, is something you can inhabit with mindfulness. The universe's unfolding is not a threat, but a story you witness. Dark energy, unknown and pervasive, is not something to fear, but to observe and reflect upon. Its invisibility makes it gentle, like a presence that moves without force, shaping outcomes imperceptibly. You sense how human language struggles to capture this subtlety. Dark energy is a name, a placeholder, a compass pointing toward questions yet unresolved. It does not define or confine. It is intentionally incomplete, leaving room for imagination, measurement, and future discovery. You feel the generosity in that. Science does not demand finality, it values precision tempered by humility. You imagine the next generation of observers, instruments, and theories, building upon the work of the past. They will continue the search, refining, probing, and listening with patience. Some questions may remain unanswered for centuries. Others will evolve as understanding grows. But the act of inquiry itself enriches the universe, creating layers of knowledge that are as expansive and subtle as the cosmic push you have been following. You notice how this journey has transformed your perception. You are no longer simply a passive observer. You have internalized the rhythm of slow expansion, the gentle accumulation of evidence, the hum of tension in the numbers. You recognize that understanding, whether scientific or personal, often grows in fragments, in pauses, and in patient attention to what is hidden yet influential. You imagine resting inside this uncertainty, letting it cradle you. Mystery is not emptiness. It is space to breathe, to wonder, to imagine. The universe's unanswered questions are a lullaby, soft and persistent, inviting your mind to drift without urgency. You feel your body relax further, sinking into the comfort of this cosmic patience. You reflect on the interplay of constancy and change. Dark energy may be constant, or it may evolve, or it may remain stubbornly ambiguous. Either way, it sets the stage for all structure, time, and memory in the universe. Its subtle influence is a reminder that the cosmos operates according to patterns and tendencies far beyond immediate perception. The smallest deviations, stretched over billions of years, shape futures unimaginable. You let your thoughts linger on this quiet orchestration. The universe expands, galaxies drift, light travels, numbers hum with tension, and all of it unfolds without need for your intervention. You are free to witness, to reflect, and to rest. Observation does not compel action. Curiosity does not demand resolution. The story itself is enough to carry your mind gently forward. You notice how each chapter of your journey, each idea explored, has led to the next, like galaxies linked by invisible threads. The discovery of dark energy, the act of naming it, the careful measurements, the tension in the numbers, the imagined futures, all these moments form a coherent sequence, a rhythm that mimics the slow unfolding of the universe. You feel this rhythm in your own heartbeat, in the rise and fall of your breath. You imagine resting inside a universe that is patient with both itself and you. It does not hurry toward conclusions. It does not demand understanding before it is ready. The cosmic push persists quietly, shaping possibilities without urgency or force. There is harmony in this pacing, a comfort in the fact that not every question needs a final answer tonight. And as you drift closer to sleep, you sense a gentle continuity. Dark energy may remain a mystery, but that mystery is not a void. It is a space to inhabit, a companion for reflection, and a guide for curiosity. It is a reminder that some truths unfold not in answers, but in attentive, patient observation. You allow yourself to rest inside that space. The universe continues its expansion. Light continues its journey. Measurements accumulate. Questions linger. And you, present and calm, drift alongside, connected to the rhythm of cosmic patience. You feel the comfort in not knowing, the peace in allowing mystery to exist without resolution. Dark energy, pervasive and elusive, has not yet revealed its nature. But in the gentle acknowledgement of the unknown, you find a sense of completeness. The story of the universe is ongoing, and tonight, it is enough to follow its quiet currents, to breathe with its rhythms, and to let the questions themselves become part of your calm. And so you rest, cradled by a universe that expands, shifts, and whispers its secrets slowly, finding comfort not in answers, but in the gentle unfolding of a mystery that is still very much alive.